So apparently Biden is to pledge steps to deter nuclear attack on South Korea. Of course, T-Man's suggestion was peace. This administration has been a lot more rough. In fact, the answer is more drills and more things that apparently are going to piss him off. Or at least that's what it seems like. It says at a summit next week with South Korean leader Yoon Suk-yeol, U.S. President Joe Biden will pledge substantial steps to underscore the U.S. commitment to deter a North Korean nuclear attack on South Korea, a senior U.S. official said on Friday. It says we are working extraordinarily and intensively with the South Koreans to take the necessary steps to buttress both public perception and the reality of our commitments, the official told Reuters ahead of Yoon's summit with Biden next Wednesday. It said that the official said that it ranked as one of the greatest U.S. achievements that a number of Indo-Pacific countries that could have built nuclear weapons had chosen not to because of the protection of the so-called U.S. nuclear umbrella. It says, quote, we have been very clear that our commitment to nuclear deterrence stands is ironclad for South Korea, said the official, who did not want to be identified by name, which they never do. It says President JB will be taking substantial steps to underscore that, to update it, to make clear that everyone has little doubt of our commitment of standing with South Korea, even in the face of provocation from North Korea, saber rattling from Russia, and frankly, ambitions for a nuclear buildup on the part of China. So even though we haven't had anybody else's back, we're going to step in and save their butts. And we're going to save Taiwan, and we're going to save everybody. People are starting to doubt that. We'll talk about that and much, much more. The current events that have happened in the last 24 hours. We'll be right back right after this for Marfoogle TV. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. I'm on the way back. Low lane till I get there like the Maytag. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. We got a lot to talk about today. So remember, if you are new here, go over to marfooglenews.com. You'll find a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document. Just look for today's thumbnail, Looming Overlords. And, of course, you'll find every single article, tweet, video, picture, document, tweet that we reference here today, plus a whole lot more. In the overflow, there is all sorts of great stuff, including Wages World's video on the large eruption from the sun that just happened. Apparently, it is a fast mover. I shared this over on a community post and on Twitter, so if you also want to find it there, you can. But it is a very, very large eruption, and it may end up being a G4. So if you want more info on that, make sure to go over to marfooglenews.com to the overflow section. You can also find his channel and all of the mods over at marfooglenews.com/friends. So make sure to go check that out as well. Let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So we're actually working on a project. North and South Korea, obviously there's so many different things that the U.S. is involved in right now. My personal belief is that China is a big part of why a lot of us are doing what we're doing. We're probably going to have a discussion in the next, month or so, and when we get this project done, talking about how there are good guys in the United States government and military, and then there's bad guys in the United States government and military. And I really want to get everybody's opinion on that once we, there's going to be more to come on this, but you have to understand there are people fighting against this kind of world domination that certain countries are pushing. But there is also infiltration and people that are basically like, hey, yeah, we'll call you if we're going to shoot a surprise attack at you. And they're at the very top of the military. There's also, of course, many people with ties to some of these places that are trying to screw us over. And as far as South Korea goes, how this fits into it is South Korea just recently found out that we were spying on them through these series of leaks, which all of the first leaks that came out made us look really, really bad. Most of them actually got countries to either comment or to make comments or even distance themselves from us. This is like a repeat of history as far as if you know history of like Genghis Khan. China actually has a history of doing stuff like this. Genghis Khan would actually send scouts in to sow dissent and confusion into a tribe before they would take over. Divide and conquer. I mean, it's one of the oldest things in the book. I think that was the original purpose of these leaks. And I don't know about the kid that released them and all of that. Who knows? He may be a patsy. But there are some serious things going on right now. This looks like the setup so somebody else can take that number one spot. So I think I will be able to prove it to you. I've done a lot of research on this, and I will have papers on this that will have footnotes and sources, and I've actually spent a lot of time on it, and it's going to be really awesome. So stay tuned. But as far as this goes, there's just an alarming amount of nuclear talk. And who knows? Do you guys think that this is a setup for some sort of Fantastic Freddy to happen to get everything kicked off? What do you guys think? Let's go over to the chat and roll call. Thank you. It looks like some people were saying hello from Arkansas. It looks like Florida. We have Wyoming. We have Washington, California. If you want to do a quick roll call and let the Foogle fam know where you're from, say hello and let us know where you watching from. And then, Dex, as far as the substantial steps, they always say the most vague stuff. They're like, yeah, well, we're going to take one step over regular steps to deal with this, and it will definitely be clear when we do it at that time when it happens.
That's just a bunch of gobbledygook. They're not doing anything. When they have something to do, they'll say it. When they have no idea what they're doing, they just make up something like that. Like, we're taking it very seriously, but we won't elaborate on what that really means. So, yeah, there's a whole bunch of nothing in there. Although, the overarching sentiment is one that sounds pretty important and pretty impressive. But at the same time, it's like, okay, well, don't tell us you really love, them. Tell us what you're going to do. But they can't do that.
Yep.
It's just not possible because they don't know what they're doing.
We're going to take substantial steps. Okay. Looks like we have Richard from Panhandle, Texas. We have Bible Talk from VA. Texas, Houston. What's going on? Let's see here. Ron Duke. I've never seen that spelling. Renee. That's another really great name. Renee. Like Renee. Rainy? Why is it always doom and gloom? Well, unfortunately, look out the window. Literally, we have a precipice outside of our window. By the way, here's another thing. If this is not your thing, this is a volunteer show. This is news, and for anybody that's new here, this is news from a prepper standpoint. So we're going to be looking at events that are most likely going to be the doom and gloom, and then we, of course, are keeping our head on a swivel about it. It is a lot of doom and gloom. I do not choose to close my eyes and put my hand over my ears and say la 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 and basically focus on what the newest trend on TikTok is. I focus on what has been changing. Just in the last 4 years, we have had a major pandemic that affected the entire globe, and there's a lot of shady stuff behind that. And if you follow the truth, just objective truth, there's a lot of shady stuff going on. I mean, a lot. And it's gotten worse. In just 5 years, a lot of restrictions have happened. A lot of our lives have been affected by this. And rules, laws, bills, and acts have gone in place that are literally going to permanently change our lives. So as far as doom and gloom, I would say not listening to doom and gloom is going to be 10 times worse if you don't know what's coming. If you just go to work one day and they say, oh, by the way, you can't drive home. You have to take the bus, or something to that level will happen eventually. There will be a lot of huge changes, and especially if the agendas are going to go into place anytime soon, which they are saying by 2030, all sorts of changes are going to happen, then it will be doom and gloom. And most of us want to prepare for this and mentally and spiritually get, ready for it. This is something that if you don't like scary movies, don't watch a scary movie. My show is a scary movie. So if you watch Scream or something and it gets you all nervous and jumbled, this isn't the show for you. Again, people, one thing I think is funny is people that don't like this stuff, they'll watch it and then say, why are you so doom and gloom? Why so depressing? Oh, it's the end of the world again. Then don't watch this stuff. That's like going to somebody who likes basketball and go, oh, why are you always talking about basketball? Well, the guy's 7'4" and he's a professional basketball player. It's probably what he's going to talk about. As far as a prepper, we're going to talk about prep. Especially the news that regards, this is all patterns. We showed people that the pandemic was going to happen before it happened. So did a lot of our other peers. Anybody who was in this prepping niche saw all of the different articles come out, all of the different graphs, all the charts, all the drills, all the practices, and we saw it before it happened. They were getting prepared for it. The W, H, and the O put out documents showing how the world was going to be affected by a global demic. They did drills and tabletop exercises that were almost identical to what really happened. So yeah, I think that it's very important to have a dose of doom and gloom. But my show should be a small part of what you are doing with your life. Rainbows and ponies should be a part of your life. You should be spending at least 20 minutes a day with rainbows and ponies. But this is not it. And then let's see here. Bug Nana. And by the way, I really appreciate when people ask, because then we get to explain ourselves. Like this is literally that dose. If you want to go down that path, it's everybody's right to go and kind of cover the things they want to speak the things they want to, and then it's also everybody's right to go consume that or to just skip it. So great question. And then Twitter begins removing blue checks from users who don't pay. I already saw Bette Midler was like saying, I cannot believe after years I have been able to give my free content away, my words and my content away to my people, and now they're asking me to pay to certify me. I cannot stand, and I'm sorry if people have another view of this and say, well, they've had it for so long. The celebrities that are complaining about $8 to $11, these are the same representatives. And even, do you remember the representative that said that she was mad because Congress wouldn't let her wear a $12,000 dress pantsuit thing to work, said it was against dress code. Now, as far as it's totally, I think that they should be able to wear certain things, and if they want to wear dresses and things like that, that's one thing. But she actually told people what it was. She goes, it was $12,000. I spent $12,000 on this outfit, and I can't wear it to work. This is a representative, meaning that they represent us. That is so far from somebody who should be representing us. If somebody is representing us as the people, you would think that they would have some tiny string of connection with the people. As somebody who doesn't spend $100 on an entire outfit, including my Walmart shoes, I cannot understand that. And I get a lot of people like their Jordans and things like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a $12,000 suit or a $12,000 dress. That is insane. On an outfit that maybe even if you wear it once a week for 20 years or something, that's still absolutely absurd. That is just absolutely stupid. And these people that's what they spent. That's what they spend on a dress. First of all, that is a college tuition. And that's in a dress that they put on their body to look pretty or to look good or suave. That's a Toyota. That's a couple of Toyotas. That is absolutely stupid. And these same people that are doing that are complaining about $11 for a freaking check mark. If you want to be verified, then it should be an equal thing. And I actually, out of all the things, I think the Twitter blue mark check mark thing is actually fair as hell. Before this, it was only the celebrities and only certain celebrities that could get them. If you were on one side of the aisle, then you would get it if you've caused enough ruckus and you didn't get kicked off. If you rode that line, you might be able to get a check mark. But you would also get some sort of search ban or ghosting or something else or a shadow ban on there. Now the people that want to get it can get it, and they have to pay for it, and it's verified. And the first person who gets that name gets to verify it. If somebody else pretends to be you, they can't get verified as that same name. And the people that even fake like you, if you are verified, you can go, I am this person, and prove it, and then those other people get taken off. That's what verification should have and always was. But it used to be where it was like an endorsement from Twitter that these people were okay. And they even had a problem with that in 2020 or 2018 or 2019. They said, like, this is a problem. People assume if they have a check mark that Twitter isn't endorsing them. But that's basically what it was. It was only the elite and certain people that got them. And you had to go through a whole rigmarole to even try, and you just wouldn't get one. So as far as you see a lot of people complaining. Dex, have you seen some of the people whining about this?
Yeah. And, come on. Like they're worried about $8 a month, and he's trying to take a platform that was actually broken. It was only good for the ones that are whining right now. It was really only served them. And he's made making a platform that potentially can work for everyone. And in the process of it, he's reduced the ads, some of it because they left because of the politicization of this, and some of it because he's actually reducing it. And so when you do that, you have to offset that. So you either pay for it. It's sort of like people complaining about watching commercials on TV. Well, but they're watching free TV. It's like, okay, you either subscribe to Paramount and watch it with no commercials, or you watch the commercials. And, I don't get the people, especially celebrities, who have more money than all of us could even understand what to do with. They're going to cry over, turning on a subscription button on their iPhone, that's going to charge them $8 a month or $11 a month, and they're never going to even notice it. But that's what they do. It's just really, it's really a politicization thing. They're not really crying over it, because they'll go drop $8 on a coffee 6 times a day.
Yep.
But they're not. It's BS. They're worried about $8 a month or $11 a month.
And it's mostly the same accounts that are also complaining about the certain sides of things. They're all politics. Like their entire accounts are politics. This, and this and that. There are 3 accounts that Elon admitted to actually paying for to keep them on, which was William Shatner, LeBron James, and then Stephen King. Stephen King, which also like tears apart everybody. I didn't realize how political Stephen King got because I didn't follow him on Twitter. That guy, along with Michael Rappaport and all these people that I actually admired when I was a kid, Stephen King is a great writer. I can't take that away from him because he's a jerk. But as far as like all of these celebrities and this Hollywood stuff, and what's crazy to me is 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, I didn't consider myself either way. But now I lean towards the underdog side, because it's just, especially in the position we're in as creators, we get taken down. There are certain things that we can't say. It's the persecuted. If you are on one side of the aisle, you are persecuted, and people want to pretend that that's not happening. I mean, it's super clear. If somebody says that the right side is not being persecuted, they are absolutely smoking Hunter. Okay, it's true. And then, by the way, if you were a late 1960s liberal, you are now considered a conservative. Just so you know that. If you look at the just like what's his name? I don't agree with everything he says. Bill Maher. Bill Maher said he hasn't changed, but the politics have changed, and now he is not. He was a super liberal, and now he's considered in the middle or something, and on some subjects he's considered on the right, even though he's not. I mean, he's. But again, it's like the bar has moved. It's like people didn't change their politics. Politics changed and just totally shifted. It's stupid. I hate when I see an actor or whatever get involved in this stuff. I hate when I see companies like Lego. Historically, this company has been like Sweden or Finland in wars. They stayed neutral. They stayed out of the BS. When all that police stuff and the blue line stuff and police stuff was going on, they canceled the advertisements for the police sets. Then they started doing like they did all sorts of culturally appropriate sets, and then they started adding things to their name tags and all of these things. It's like they're doing it for money. They are doing it because there are not only studies and different investment companies that invest in companies if they go along with this stuff, but they also showed a study that says basically if you pick a side of politics, you can make more money. So the side that you make more money on is on the current left or side of this. And they have studies to back that up. So all these companies, what offends me and should offend all of these people, that they're supposedly supporting all of these groups, but those groups are the ones who should be offended because they're fake supporting. They're not really supporting these groups. They get in a room. My friend used to work for Amazon, and they have like I don't know if I should. I guess it doesn't matter. There was a bunch of people on it, but they have like a diversity kind of inclusion board or whatever. And on this board, essentially, he says, "Hey, I just noticed there's actually all white guys here. Should we try to like get, other people in here?" And they're like, they laughed and they told him, "Dude, we don't actually care about inclusiveness. We just have to look like we care." And it was a big old joke. Everybody, ha 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 ha. Like this is what they're just doing it for money and advertisements. They're pushing it out there, or they're doing it for their CEI score or something. That's what should offend every group, no matter what you are, whatever you do with your life. That's up to you. As far as the stuff that's being pushed, though, that is artificial, and they're doing it just to do it, just to get money out of. They're squeezing everybody for money. It's absolutely insane. And then Florida Division of Emergency Management, of course, ends contract with company responsible for early morning alarm tests. So this is an update. As you know, the other day, the EAS went off in Florida at 4:45 in the morning. I got a bunch of calls and texts from people saying like, "Hey, heads up, like this is really weird. We have never gotten a nighttime or a early morning like that kind of alarm." And it's an alarm that goes to all the phones. It was an actual EAS test thing. And it did say it was a test, but it was at 4:45 a.m. Now, they have tests like that on TV all the time. In fact, most of them are at 2:30 in the morning, and they'll start going off if your TV's on. But as far as cell phones, this is something that is like harassment. I mean, if you're sleeping at 4 in the morning and something goes ram, 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 and you can't shut the dang thing off, that's horrible, especially for a test. If it's a real event, then yeah, everybody would appreciate that. But if it's a test, nobody did. Everybody was pissed. And now DeSantis actually says that they fired whoever was in responsibility for it. Dex, so they got rid of the guy, right?
Actually, it's a company. So apparently the FDEM, which is the Florida Division of Emergency Management, contracts with this other company, Everbridge. Everbridge is contacted by the state to provide technical coding and instructions required to push out emergency alerts. FDM said Everbridge sent the wrong technical specifications for Thursday morning's alert, mistakenly sending it out to all cell phones statewide. So they may have been like doing a test of some updated code and would normally send it to like 4 or 5 phones that are that are probably in their testing group or something like that, and that and they miscoded it and sent it to everyone. That's my interpretation of this. So basically that company is being positioned out, as they said. The Everbridge is contracted with them. They're taking the appropriate actions to ensure it'll never happen again, and they're going to dismiss that company.
And as far as the to get rid of the whole company, somebody says hacking, and I guess if it was a single person, they could cover that up a little bit more. But if they are changing companies, that's kind of hard. As far as it was a third party company that did it. I thought one of the people from the company ended up getting taken out, but the whole company ended up getting hit. So I would still keep your head on a swivel. Things like that don't happen ever. And then since the false missile alert, we've had so many. It just seems like something's going on, especially with what's happening with Russia and China and everybody else. And they all have their cyber teams working on, doing all sorts of different attacks. And then SpaceX's Starship kicked up a dust cloud, leaving Texans with a mess. Now, I know we have a bunch of people from Texas here. Did any of you actually notice this as well? I saw at least one comment after the coverage of this saying that it caused some bad air quality. It says, as the most powerful rocket ever built blasted off from its launch pad in Boca Chica, Texas on Thursday, the liftoff rocked the earth and kicked up a billowing cloud of dust and debris, shaking homes and raining down a brown grime for miles. In Port Isabel, a city about 6 miles northwest of where at least one window shattered, residents were alarmed. It was truly terrifying, said Sharon Almager, who said that at the time of the launch was home with her 80-year-old mother during previous launches inside the brick house, but this was completely different level launch. Meanwhile, SpaceX's Starship exploded minutes after liftoff and before reaching orbit near the launch site. The residents of Port Isabel, known for towering lighthouses and less than 10 miles away from the border of Mexico, were left to deal with the mess. Virtually everywhere in the city ended up with a covering of a rather thick, granular sand grain that landed on everything. Valerie Bates, a Port Isabel spokesperson, said, it says a window shattered at a fitness gym. Its owner, Luis Alanis, said that Mr. Alanis, who was at home at the time of launch, said he felt rumbling, kind of like a mini earthquake. He estimated that the window would cost about $300 to fix, which I'm assuming he might even get to briefly talk to Elon or get a tweet from her or something. I'm assuming SpaceX is just going to pay for it. And then closer to the launch site, large pieces of debris were recorded flying through the air and smashing into an unoccupied car. Luis Boldares, the founder of Lab Padre, which films SpaceX launches, said that it was it was common to see some debris, smoke, and dust. The impact of Thursday's liftoff was unlike anything he had ever seen. He said that there were bowling ball-sized pieces of concrete that came flying out of the launch pad area. Now that actually that made me a little confused there. So was this concrete? Did it break? Now remember, Elon said that they were worried about it actually melting the launch pad. Did chunks off of the launch pad get launched, or what happened here? And then they also said that there was a crater that was created that was 25 feet deep. It didn't look like it. I guess, you would have to go be up close. But this thing's massive. This rocket was gigantic. I mean, it's hard to put into scale. Even with pictures, little people next to this rocket are like a piece of sand. Dex, do you think it's where did the concrete come from?
Oh, that's a great question. I think, at the end of the day, they've never done this before. So they didn't know. Like this is all new. So I imagine what I'm going to assume is as they progress with this, they're going to find things like making the pad bigger, reducing the amount of dust, maybe watering down the area around there before they do launches, stuff like that. I don't know what else they would do, but I got a sneaking suspicion if every time they launch a rocket of this size and they're going to start doing them frequently, then it may be a problem out there. Now, mind you, this is their testing area. This is in Texas. It is one of their launch sites. They do launch from here, but they also have the Cape Canaveral over in Florida. So they may move there when they move into production or when they move into, normal launches, and things may be a little different there. But again, the size of this is so big, it's unprecedented. It's never been done before. So we're bound to find all sorts of things. Now, mind you, the media loves to pick on him, anything he's doing, whether it's blue check marks or launching the largest rocket in the world. If, great feats don't, let's not lead with the greatness of it. Let's say it blew up, in flight. Let's not talk about the feat that was achieved. So, yeah, there's always these pick on, Elon stories that are out there. So you kind of have to weed through this a little bit, but at the same time, I still think if there's issues like this, it's something that if they don't address it, the FAA will make them do it. I mean, they don't allow, they only allow so much of, things to happen around, events like this. They're not going to allow it to keep happening that way.
And Gene says, where is a rocket like that going? Mars, somewhere else? That's what they say. I mean, that's what they claim, that is going to be the rocket. It's the biggest rocket in the world. Somebody said 16 billion pounds of pressure or something. I forget what they said, 16 billion or something tons of pressure coming out of that thing.
It was twice the thrust of the Saturn rockets, which were the big ones back in the day.
Jeez. So, I mean, it's massive. They say they're going to take us to Mars with the thing. He even has a plan that he laid out years ago, which essentially says that he has this graph of like he's going to get 1 million people there by a certain year, and how many people will be put on each one, and this and that. Obviously, there are many torn people in our audience of whether that's going to happen or not, but I guess we'll see. I mean, this is it, just hypothetically, this happens and people are really going to Mars. I just wonder, instead of all of the earthly stuff they could be doing, why are they doing this? Unless there's money in it, unless there's something that they can make trillions of dollars off of, people go, well, he's already the richest person in the world. That's what I don't get. When people get this rich, it's not about the money anymore. It's about power, because money buys power. That's why a lot of us couldn't fathom if you had even a few $1 million. It's like, I don't know. I feel I would just be set. I would be okay with that. I would go live in a small town and just live out the rest of my time. But some of these people, they just have to get more and more and more. But you're talking about of a level where they can have a private island, have it staffed, have a private jet, have all of this stuff, and the money that they make will support that lifestyle just off of their interest. They don't have to do anything more. But of course, they always do. It's just like it's crazy. It's crazy to think about people with this much money. So it's about making either a legacy or power or something else. Have aliens evolved into intelligent machines? Before we talk about this, I want to say thank you. Thank you over on DLive, Beer Juice, Defy Tyrants. Kimbria, thank you. Happy Friday, fam. Hey, happy Friday. And then thank you for everybody that popped in from all over the country. Thank you, guys. And then Tennessee Mountain Girl, thank you for the $20 super sticker. I appreciate that. A hippo holding some sort of sign. And then Neil Nelson, thank you as well for the $20 super sticker. I appreciate that. Neil Nelson, thank you as well for the $10. And Be Real Beast, thank you for the super chat. I'm sure we all own pants from Ross missing belt loops. Be Real Beast, though, like I know a couple people that would just never shop at Ross, never shop at Target, never shop at Walmart. I know people that will just not even walk into a Walmart. They feel like they're better than Walmart. I'm there all the time. I mean, that's where I get my stuff. I cannot see spending more than like $8 or $6 on a t-shirt. It does not make sense. Unless it's for a cause or for somebody I like. It's like $6 generic shirt. And Adam, why don't you come on show dressed as Dracula? Dex would make an ass-kicking Wolfman. Maybe for Halloween. Richard Koschmeider, thank you so much. Carol, thank you so much. And Mystery School, thank you. By the way, yesterday I missed Jamie Lanier. Lanier? Thank you so much for the $1.99 super chat. Thank you so much. And appreciate that. Dex, do you want to cover this? Have aliens evolved into intelligent machines?
So this is a very interesting point of view from some different science figures in the world, but what they're describing or what they're saying is like if we think that aliens out there are going to look like us, or even be anything remotely um, similar to the way we are, then we're probably not thinking correctly about it. And the reason they're saying that is if you just sort of look at how we think we're going to evolve, especially from a technological point of view, everything is moving to tech, everything is moving to digital, to electronics. And the thought here is that the likelihood of AI and machines taking over, or at least uh, embedding into humans, or evolving out of humans, is the likelihood. And if that's where the likelihood is of where we think the world we're in right now would go, say 100 or 1,000 years from now, you've got to really think that anybody that's going to have the capability of coming to our world across the universe has going to be advanced even further. And to think that they're just going to show up in some form that like we think of green aliens walking around like you see in an old movie, um is not really representative. It's more likely that they're going to be some form of machine. They're going to be probably very much machine oriented. And not only that, they'll last a lot longer. Machines can last for millions of years, as opposed to carbon forms like we are. We'll get old and die and decompose. So it's a very long article. There's a lot more to it if you guys want to read it on the website. But the gist of it, and this is coming hot off the heels of a lot of the UFO talks going on with Arrow and the meetings that were happening in Congress, and even the paper I think that was written by Avi Loeb, and the other gentleman that's the director. I think it even sort of talks about how we should be, looking at this as potentially not forms, figures, but thinking of it as more like machines that are coming here. And to that extent, when we talk about seeing all of these different UAPs or UFOs, whatever you want to call them, a lot of the spheres that they've talked about, which has been the most prevalent one as of recent, one could, you could either say if it's not technology coming from our world, in other words, coming from ourselves or from our adversaries, and it is coming from somewhere else, then that is more of a logical explanation to think, hey, this is coming from machines and some sort of artificial intelligence or some sort of technical intelligence that is doing this. And it could even be machines coming from another place that have been sent without people on them, if you want to use that term, or beings, I should say, without some form of being on it. So it's very fascinating concept that they're talking about, and it's probably fairly realistic if you think about the logic that would go into all of that, if you buy the whole space and aliens and all that. I know everybody's sort of got their own opinion on it, so I'm
Well,
not
Dex,
trying to push that one way or the other.
think about it. If we are at this point in technology, we're not traveling between planets yet. If we're not like a Type 1 civilization or anything yet, if they are, then they would most likely be past the whole AI thing that we're currently debating. And you would think that as far as like the AI, and with AI being possibly going sentient, then if you were to travel to other planets, or if you did have these AI beings, then you would send them. You wouldn't send the humans, because there would be no issue as far as sending them somewhere to scout.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
exactly. And they can survive it, and they can handle it. And by the way, I mean, if assuming someone is here, it means they've been able to traverse further than an entire solar system, right? Like we've seen most of the places in our solar system, and we can kind of tell there's not much here. And then you can probably go out and say, well, did they go from our out of our galaxy, from another galaxy? No. So the amount of technology that would be needed to be able to do that, to get through the amount of time it takes to travel, to be able to survive all of that, it's something that we're nowhere even close. It's probably 1,000 years before we're going to be even thinking about that. We're trying to see how can we get to the moon, and it's so if these things are showing up at our front door, from somewhere else in this universe, then they have to be extremely advanced.
Yeah, Oumuamua, they say it might have been a scout ship from some sort of mothership, right? I wonder why they tell us all this, right? And then before we talk about Isaac Newton's eerie 1704 prophecy has people terrified of imminent apocalypse. Actually, I've also heard people talking about George Washington's prophecy for America. That's been talked about on Twitter lately a lot. Before we do, I do want to remind you guys, if you do want to support us by one of our best affiliates, then I would highly recommend going over and checking out all of the Energy solar generators. If you don't know anything about solar generators, then I would highly recommend looking into the Flex 1500, the Kodiak X2, and of course the new Flex Tactical, which is on pre-order. But the Flex 1500, the reason why it's special is because it's expandable, it's modular, so you can actually add in different units like Legos in between the bricks. They lock together, and then of course they change the overall performance of the unit. You can expand it up to 96 batteries. You do not have to buy $5 a gallon gas. You can charge it from either your wall, your car, or from the sun. If you get the package with solar panels, you put them out in your yard or put them out in the sun, or even an overcast day, and you will have power not only being produced, but being saved and ready on demand. So this is really cool, especially now the Flex 1500 has the new UPS rapid charger. It turns it into an uninterrupted power supply. To be classified as a UPS system, essentially it has to switch over in less than so many milliseconds. So if you have, say, your fridge plugged into it, the power goes out, it will automatically switch over to your solar generator. I mean, everybody knows if a store loses power or hospital loses power, it flashes, then it goes over to the generator. That's what you would use these for. What the greatest part about these, though, is that they are silent. Being a solar lithium ion or lithium ion phosphate in the case of the X2, they are absolutely silent. They can be used inside. They don't have any flammable or noxious gases that are that come off of them. So you can actually use them in your home. Even if you had them out in your yard, nobody from farther than 2 feet away would be able to hear it. As far as going stealth during an SHTF situation or even a disaster like Hurricane Katrina, that is very, very important. It's definitely great if you have a gas-powered generator. I would highly look at some of the pros and cons. If you already have a gas-powered generator, that's great. But also you have a finite level or a number of gas that you may be able to store. Not everybody can store huge containers that are going to last months. This is a really great way to fill in the gaps. So again, this can be its own thing as well. These things are absolutely amazing. They're built like tanks. They are absolutely amazing. They have come in clutch many, many times. They're good for camping. They're good for work. They're good for bringing with you if you do construction. I'm able to power my drills and power my saws from this thing. So it's just absolutely great. Go to marfooglenews.com/energy and make sure to use the code Marfoogle. The Marfoogle code not only gets you a special discount, and that actually stacks on top of the X2 sale, but it will also help support us as well. It gives us a small commission. There we can actually keep surviving and even help reinforce the growth of our channel. So thank you guys in advance. If you already get one, if you already have one, let people know how awesome these are and, of course, how useful they are. All right, and then Dex, let's talk about Isaac Newton's eerie 1704 prophecy. Very creepy.
Well, this is so. For those of you who didn't know, and I really didn't know this, he actually predicted, and it was based off of a lot of religious and research into the Bible and other things like that. It wasn't just like, he had a vision. But he and by the way, a lot of people didn't think about that either, because he's obviously one of the discoverers of like physics, math, a lot of science. Tried to say that the world was round, things like that went sort of against a lot of the Christian beliefs at the time. So a lot of people just completely wrote him off, and then a lot of people now sort of think of him as one of the godfathers of science, so to speak. And you wouldn't think of this type of thing coming from Newton, but in actuality, he actually is predicting that we got like 30 something years left. If you go back to what he predicted, that we're going to be done around 2060. He said that, it was based on the research that he had done into things. So kind of fascinating. I don't know that it's not like real clear, like, oh, there's going to, AI is going to take over the world, humanity's going to, fight, and then it's going to be over. It's not, he didn't go into anything like that. This is not like a prediction from, say, Nostradamus or something like that. But it was new to me. I've never heard this. I'm sure it's been out there. It's not like it was a secret, but yeah, many people just didn't think about Newton, but he does have a date of 2060 for us.
Yeah, and he said in the mid 21st century that Christ would come back. I mean, like, that's just it's so crazy, because if you think about it, they're in the 1700s, in 1704, and that's that's kind of a random number, 400 years out. You would think, oh, we'll come back in the 1800s, 1900s, but he was using what is being said and how he put the math on all of the Bible prophecies, and he put it at the mid 2000s, right? Which is just a trip. How so many different prophecies lined up. It says, and the days of short-lived beasts being put for the years of lived kingdoms, and the period of 1260 days, if dated from the complete conquest of the three kings, AC 800, will end AC 2060. It may end later, Newton wrote, but I see no reason for its ending sooner. That's a trip. Did you know about Isaac Newton's prophecy? I mean, I have never heard of this. And I mean, the Fugel fam digs into all sorts of stuff like this, and I've never heard of this. I also did not know about George Washington's prophecies. We'll talk about that on another episode, but he has a prophecy saying that, America is essentially going to go through all sorts of horrible things. And then leak reveals surging calls for terrorism against Americans. This is a bigger one. We'll just call this T. Organizations and domestic violence have upped their online threats against certain groups of Americans and critical infrastructure in recent weeks. So pay attention to this, because when they put these kind of telegraphing moves out there, and when they put this kind of stuff out there, pay attention. It says, according to an intelligence memorandum from the Department of Homeland Security obtained by the Daily Beast, it says the calls for attacks have specifically targeted the LGBT community, journalists, the White House, and perceived enemies of Islam in recent weeks. It says the agency also reported an uptick for demands for attacks against law enforcement, gov, and military. The violent extreme have been providing guidance on how to conduct these attacks, including suggesting the use of Molotov cocktails, firearms, and arson, the intelligence memo, which was released in the last week, states. Now, I'm trying to be careful here. If you just talk on a regular phone with those words, they will start, click, click, oh, FBI surveillance van. If you say it on here, then it's much worse. It says much of the communication takes place on Telegram, Twitter, WhatsApp, and Facebook. The memo, which was prepared by the DHS Counter Mission Center, was coordinated by the DHS Intelligence Enterprise. It notes, some of the content calls for attacks during Ramadan, while others focus on calling for violence against the LGBT community following the Nashville event. The threats include calls to use explosives to sabotage an oil project in Alaska or to attack law enforcement and journalists, the memo states. The document highlights some media outlets that have allegedly been spreading photos of U.S. citizens visiting Yemen with guidance to take their lives, while the other media is focused on attacking substations in the United States. So whether you believe that it will be these groups or this group or that group, when they're putting this kind of stuff out, people should pay attention, because many times when the real event happens, they have these kind of memos go out. And of course, when the real event happens, they of course criticize agencies like DHS and FBI and CIA for saying, how did you know about this and you didn't stop it? How did you have exact information? How did you have, unredacted names? People that were imprisoned, then let go, that said they were going to do this, and then how did you not go arrest them again? And they ended up perpetrating this or this crime. When these kind of very specific DHS memos like this happen, people need to pay attention. A 2018 memo said that every American should have 6 months of food and water due to the risk of our grid going down. And this has only fast forwarded today. The risk of a grid down has even gotten worse, and Davos Group, the evil and evil, have essentially put together all of the world's top cybersecurity experts and said that it is a very high possibility that in the next 2 years, very specifically in the next 2 years, we will have a catastrophic cyber event. Why all of this telegraphing of a very specific thing happening? People can choose to not pay attention to it, or they can choose to, say, have a backup plan. That's the whole point of this. Have a backup plan, people. The intelligence memo comes as the country remains in a heightened threat environment when it comes to terrorism threats, according to National Advisory System Bulletin from November, viewed by the Daily Beast. The alert expires at the end of this May. Dex, it actually expires very soon. So hopefully that's not a timeline type of thing.
Yeah, that could be spooky if there's a timeline, if that creates a timeline. But I have a sneaking suspicion there'll be another update that'll come out right before that one expires.
Yep, and it will say that they're gonna go after LGBT fish or something. Fish sticks will be watched and monitored by FBI. And then Taiwan quietly urges U.S. to calm rhetoric on China chip dangers. So this is pretty interesting because they've been talking about how there's all of these backdoors and different things going on with these chips. This is another part of some of the research I've been doing. It's pretty insane how much China is doing in this area. Well, Taiwan is basically urging to stop talking about it. It says, spooked by the threat that China might invade Taiwan, the U.S. wants to cut its dependence on the island's world-beating microchips. Officials in Taipei believe the JB administration is going too far. In quiet conversations and back-channel warnings, Taiwanese officials have urged their American counterparts to tone down their rhetoric about the dangers of relying on chips made by Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. It says the officials are particularly unhappy with the Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, who called U.S. dependence on Taiwanese chips untenable and unsafe. They were also uneasy with remarks by a top Republican lawmaker, Michael McCall, during a recent trip to Taipei. He said that Taiwan's semiconductor industry is a strategic asset that's very vulnerable to invasion. That's pretty funny. He said it's vulnerable to invasion, not like... Yeah, it's very vulnerable to millions of people coming over, hundreds of thousands of troops coming over. Yeah, I guess that's technically right. The window's closing, McCall said, about a U.S. push to move the chip supply chain out of Taiwan, which is kind of crazy even thinking that. It's like, well, is this a Taiwan business or is it ours and we're going to just move our stuff out of there? We don't have a whole lot of time. Taiwan's concerns were described by people familiar with the government's stance who asked not to be identified discussing private conversations. As always, by the way, there are so many company traders and treacherous people. Literally everything in the news is it's all asked by somebody who cannot be identified or someone who wishes to remain anonymous. So we don't exactly know what's true here, but it says the nervousness they described highlights the conundrum the Taiwanese officials face in maintaining the island's role as home to 90% of the world's advanced semiconductors, which power everything from smartphones to artificial intelligence chatbots, while also trying to attract the military and diplomatic support needed to deter an invasion. China views Taiwan at blah, blah, blah as basically theirs, and they're worried about this happening. For Taiwan, the U.S. warnings about the risk of attack have taken on new urgency amid signs of some investors are listening. They include billionaire Warren Buffett, whose Berkshire Hathaway Inc. cut its TSMC holdings by 86% in the fourth quarter. So Warren Buffett basically dropped out almost closer to more than three quarters, almost 100% of his holdings out of TSMC. You know Warren Buffett's connected. He's one of the people everybody says, he's probably just getting a tip. It's probably not because he's like, I see the patterns. He's probably getting a tip from somebody in the government, which he probably paid them some money or something previously, and they're like, hey, just a heads up, you should get out of TSMC because they're about to invade. It really makes sense. When you look at the time frame of this, Japan has turned their constitution over. Japan is going to be a prick in China's side when they go to take Taiwan. Japan is going to stand up. The fact is if China takes Taiwan and even just takes Japan, China will be a number one very, very soon if they take those two countries. So they would do it before Japan turns around its military into an offensive force. They would do it before the USA has their own semiconductor chip plants here. They would do it while we are distracted with Russia. They would do it while we have all of our low stockpiles. And they would also do it possibly after doing an event that would suck up energy in the U.S. And also, like Genghis Khan, do it while we are completely divided and absolutely tearing each other apart and completely divided. This is when these guys would conquer. This is why I think it's going to happen very, very soon. Dex, what are your opinions on this?
Well, definitely pay attention to Wall Street when they move their money around. So Buffett moving the money is a big deal. I think, clearly TSMC doesn't want to go out of business. They don't want to lose business. So they don't like the rhetoric. And I'm sure that's why they're saying this. On the other hand, Xi probably likes them saying this too, because if he's going to take it over, he wants them to have the most advanced technology possible. So he doesn't want anybody to abandon Taiwan or move away from there. Because he's looking at it as I'll get that golden egg at some point. And if it's even more, if it's larger or if it's shinier by then, that's even better. So I think, you got to look at it from those two perspectives as well. But definitely follow the money. When money moves out, those guys typically have more insight to what may be coming. They've always been on the forefront of major conflicts and things like that. You'll see money move. You'll see Wall Street react long before action takes place and is reported in the news. Insider
trading. I mean, Warren Buffett got a heads up from somebody. Whether it's his buddy that works at DHS or it's a buddy in the government, somebody gave him a heads up. He just fire sailed $3.7 billion worth of TSMC. That's 86% of its holdings. It's strange. Well, I guess it's not strange. It's telling. So something to pay attention to. When this happens, by the way, people say, well, you want this to happen. I don't want this to happen. Vindication for this means a whole lot of bad stuff. I don't think we will be here on YouTube when all of this stuff goes down. I think it's going to be a horrendous event. All right, and then thank you again, Tennessee Mountain Girl, Nell Nelson. Kelly Jo Z, thank you so much. I appreciate your support tonight. Susie Bailey Kupti, thank you so much for the super sticker. You are amazing. Well, thank you. You are too. And Joseph New, hey, I recorded a clip from the show yesterday and Dex talking. I may have added something too. Thanks. Joseph, thank you for your support. Kelly Josie, thank you for your support. Carol, thank you for your support. And of course, Carrie Ray and Aunt Jenny and Cookie Licious, thank you for your support over on DLive. All right, and then China's foreign minister says both sides of the Taiwan Strait belong to China. Dex, do you want to go in? And this is, again, this is actually, there may be a later update to this, but this is yesterday's story, so I believe it's solid. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, this is the foreign minister said this on Friday that both sides of the strait belong to China, and he's referring to proper as they, as one way of being phrasing it as proper China, but he's basically denying the fact that the independence of Taiwan exists, and he's saying like these are those red lines. Nobody should be going through them. It's our territory. It's our waterway. And we as the US and others, we traverse that all the time. We do it to make a statement, to make sure that it is truly free and open waters as opposed to controlled waters. So yeah, this statement was made today by the foreign minister. And it is, yet again, more of the rhetoric that's coming out with them not ever since, the last meeting, but it ramped up a little bit with that last meeting. But it's also, just sort of laying down those position statements that they have, or their positioning that they feel like or they claim. It's not even a feeling. They actually believe 100% it's their territory, it's their island, it's their waterway, and no one should be crossing through it without their permission.
And if, by the way, if they end up controlling that strait, if they end up controlling all of these different places where they have the Belt and Road Initiative, they are very quickly coming up on the U.S. and people do not realize this. Dex, is there any way I might be able to pull up? Is there any way to pull up that map? I actually put in the footnotes of my document, I put the link for that. There's actually a map on the Council for Foreign Relations, I believe it is, the CFR.org. But there's a map of all of the places the Belt and Road Initiative is right now. And it's really crazy. Adding into all of the more trade that more of the planet is doing with China now, the Belt and Road Initiative, I was absolutely blown away by how many places are now getting loans from China, and China rarely ever writes off those loans. So, I mean, this is something where they are building up their military as one contingency for taking over the world, and then they also have the expansion of their military might, and as far as their economic might, as their other contingency plan to take over the world. They are absolutely trying to become number one, and soon. And I'll be able to prove it here in a few days. Like, I mean, obviously people already know, but to show it visually, it's pretty alarming. And when you look at what is happening with our culture and everything else, it's not the good old boys here that are pushing these culture changes and this dividing culture. This is coming from outside of our country. I guarantee it. Dex, is it a screener?
Yeah, it's in screener.
So check this out. I found this earlier. Let's see. This is a trip. So this is we can attach this to the website as well, but this talks about the original Silk Road with Genghis Khan, and it also talks about the new Silk Road. This is essentially, they have been doing loans for infrastructure and critical infrastructure for all of these different countries. Look at this. And the different shades are from when it is. The darkest were the original Belt and Road initiatives. The lighter colors, the lighter the color gets, the fresher that is. Since 2013, 2014, those were the oldest ones. Since Xi in 2013 started this, all of these countries have taken Belt and Road initiatives. Look at this. Loans. Are people understanding what is happening here? The grayed out area is Russia. So pretty much everywhere else, again, has been doing these initiatives, right? Besides, obviously, Canada, Mexico. But now Mexico is talking trash about it. Australia and Japan. obviously not. But New Zealand, yes. Papua New Guinea, Indonesia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, which is kind of funny considering Saudi Arabia has been giving them the red carpet treatment and giving us the shaft, not even answering our calls. Poland, Belarus, all these places, Macedonia, Egypt, Libya, Algeria, Sudan. I mean, like, all these places are in debt to China now. Not good. And then bipartisan bill would arm Taiwan to the teeth with U.S. cyber tech. Before we go there, I want to remind you, if you want to protect yourself, if there is a solution, if you're worried about EMPs or even CMEs or solar flares like what just happened, if you want to protect your cars, your trucks, your boats, your motorcycles, your ATVs, and even your, of course, your solar generators and your ham radios, even your home, they make an EMP Shield. EMP Shield is a company that has actually worked with agencies like DHS, outfitting agencies DOD, and of course they are outfitting Texas with the DEMSO team. So if you want to get the same protection that the government and the military are starting to do, you can go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. It will protect you against CMEs as well. If we have a Carrington level event, this will keep your car going so you can bug out, or keep it running so you can get home to bug in. This is very easy to put in your car. The most popular one is definitely the easiest to do. In about 10 minutes, you can protect your car and make it EMP hardened. What it will do is ground the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry your car. Again, it's very, very easy to do. Under 10 minutes, you can put it in yourself. And of course, they have all sorts of other devices as well. So make sure to go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP. You'll get $50 off per device, and you'll be helping our channel. So thank you guys in advance. And if anybody that has already dealt with EMP Shield will tell you, they're an awesome company. They bend over backwards to make sure that everybody's happy. So they're really, really great. They're a veteran-owned business. Go check them out. And then bipartisan bill would arm Taiwan to the teeth with the U.S. cyber tech. Dex, go ahead.
Well, if you think about the largest purveyors of cyber activity or cyber attacks, you pretty much look at both China and Russia, but China probably being much larger. They have a bigger footprint. They've obviously their fingers been pointed at them quite a bit in the past. They have an amazing technology as far as their capabilities and what they're able to do. And we, the U.S., have been fighting that for a long time. So we actually have a huge tool set. We have a lot of technology and capability to detect and prevent and deal with that. And it's probably something that Taiwan lacks. And they're trying to get this bill passed so that we can share that technology with them, because they know, obviously, when an event kicks off, or actually before an event kicks off, there will more than likely be an onslaught of cyber activity thrown towards Taiwan from China. So they're looking at ways that they can preemptively get them the tech that they need to be able to defend off that, and potentially even determine if they've already been infiltrated and what systems have been hit and they're just lying dormant. So that's what they're hoping to get accomplished. It's nice to actually see something that says it's bipartisan, but you never know with our craziness in our government. But that's the path they're trying to go down right now.
Hey, Major in chat, if you're saying you're coughing up blood, man, you need to follow the advice of the chat and go to the ER, man. Somebody even mentioned that, you could have punctured a lung or something. And if you're struggling to breathe, call 911, or one of our mods can, because I know that obviously some of our mods are friends with you, and we've almost had to do it once before. So if you need help, let us know, man. And then I'm praying for you, Major. And then let's see here. Lady Yell, what is happening? Valley Girl, origami. Yeah, that's not something to play with, man. I have had some stuff. I freaked myself out one time when I had something similar to that, but it was because there was damage from just being sick and stuff. During the whatever I thought was the CV, that I had really horrendous stuff going on. Let's see here. 10 years left. This famed geopolitical analyst says that China is going to collapse in the next decade. Here are the three numbers that could support his contrarian forecast. First of all, I think this guy's full of it. Some of you may have seen him on Joe Rogan. Every comment under almost all of his videos, and which that's funny because people do like him, and I'm sure some of you guys do. And I'm not talking trash about the person, but I think that every comment says that it seems like this guy is scripted, that there's something unnatural about it. Some have said that he's like CIA or former CIA, or they think he is. I don't know if that's true. I don't believe them, though. I think China will go to war with a major country before they go and collapse. What's crazy is people are totally blind to the fact that America and the dollar is on the route to collapse. Meanwhile, saying, oh, China is going to be the one that collapses. Just want to remind you, like, almost the entire world is in debt to them right now. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't believe it. And if you do have information that could totally change my mind, and if you're like, oh, I have proof that it is, then send it to me. I'm totally open-minded. I would love to see it. People look at the ghost cities and they've wrote articles saying, oh, that's because they're actually broke, and it's how they're keeping themselves afloat and all of this. They're building one of the most massive militaries, and maybe that's why. Maybe if they are going to collapse, maybe they are planning to use the most powerful military in the world and all of those nuclear silos for world domination so they can take other people's money. I don't know. But it seems like they're basically loaning all of these countries super high interest loans. So if they are going to collapse, maybe they won't be for long, because look at how many places have been taking money out. So, Dex, what do you think about this gentleman saying that, in 10 years, China is going to collapse?
Well, part of it, he's talking about their economic stance, and one of those being the fact that they had shut down so long and had that zero policy, which caused them to shut down for so long. And then they finally backed out of that, obviously. That caused major slowdowns with them. So that is one of the many critical points they're trying to make. And then, obviously inflation across the globe, fighting, that's causing issues, et cetera. But, I guess the flip side to that is they're now open for business again. They're booming. They're headed right back where they were. At least that's what I'm seeing. And, at the end of the day, when you look at how the U.S. consumers consume things, we still are of the give me the cheapest thing I can get, which is why, Walmart is full of products from there. Amazon is full of products from there. And that's just the mentality that we have around here. We don't, we're not willing to pay 4 times more to get something that's made here in America. Some people are. I'm sure there's people in chat that are. I try to myself when I can. If I possibly can, I will look. But, there's certain things you just can't. And it's not just that. We as consumers, we need the cheap shirt. We need the cheap, we need the iPhones and the other tech parts that come out of their country. It's not going to go away. So that's sort of the struggle. And then the other one was more of a demographic thing, like the whole population shrinking because of the fact that they did that one child policy for so long that now they have this huge gap that's going to hit them. And I think they estimated they'll be down to like 800 million people by the year 2100. That's a huge drop from 1.42. And that's not because of anything else other than just the decisions that they made in trying to manage their population. Now all of a sudden they're going to have a whole bunch of old old people and not a lot of younger people. So that's going to cause a problem.
They're encouraging it. Now they're
Yeah,
encouraging them to have multiple
now they're
kids.
like, you could have three. We want you to have three per family, and they're trying to ramp it back up. But that will work over time, but that doesn't solve the problem. The problem is that gap, and that gap's going to cause them to have a major population shift between now and the end of the century. So it's kind of a big deal.
I think they did it on purpose. I think they shut down for 3 years on purpose. I think it is part of whatever the plan was that was enacted in 2019. I think it was on purpose that they did that because it doesn't make sense. It does not make sense at all. If you look, what's even crazier is even in America, that one specific culture was the least affected by the CV. I thought that was very interesting. And the excuse for it on Dex, do you remember what website I sourced the thing, the least Asian, that might have been Council of Foreign Relations as well. It essentially says that their excuse for it, or how the government explains that the least Asians got this, and specific ones got CV, not in China, because of course they shut down and closed everything down, so that makes sense. But here is because of racism. They said that essentially that they weren't getting the proper testing and unfair testing, so they just didn't test as much as other people. But yet they were also able to tell us that Black, Latino, and others were the worst affected by the CV, that got it and got sick and got hurt. I just thought that was interesting. But in the same way, certain cultures were not able to test. There's all sorts of really funky things here that are brewing, and I think people are going to be kind of blown away when this all starts coming together, and coming together where people can't deny it. It's going to be freaky. I also think that, I'm not saying this guy is, but there's many people with my skin tone that are most likely paid to say, oh yeah, Xi's great, blah, blah, blah. Maybe even paid to go into the chat and go, oh, Taiwan is China. Taiwan should be China. I mean, like, there's some funky stuff on the internet. And media, huge investment companies over there investing in huge swaths of, they could pay Joe Rogan and the companies that put him on, they could pay him $4 million to have somebody on and say a certain thing or say a certain Ganda piece. I don't know. Appear weak when you're strong and strong when you're weak. Sun Tzu. And then Russia watching for new Western sanctions says that they would hit world economy. Kremlin said on Friday it was monitoring reports of a possible ban on exports to Russia by Western countries, that new sanctions would damage the global economy. It says, quote, we are carefully monitoring this. We are aware of both the U.S. and EU actively considering new sanctions, Kremlin spokesman said. It says, we believe that both are the current sanctions against the Russian Federation and the new additional steps that the U.S. and EU may be thinking about now will, of course, also hit the global economy. Therefore, this may lead to an increase in trends towards worldwide economic crisis. Now, this is actually correct. The sanctions on Russia hurt you and I. Just so you know that. I'm not siding with the Vlad people over here, but it did. And now the folks telling the truth about this, obviously it's out there. It hurt us. We've covered how their GDP is actually going to go up. Other countries like India was a good example. The same time, the year before the invasion, the same month in the invasion, they ended up buying 6 times as much oil as they did the year prior or any year prior to that to make up for the sanctions. And that was just one country doing it. All of their allies were buying extra supplies and essentially making up for the sanctions. So they skirted around these sanctions. These sanctions they just didn't do the trick. And the sanctions also showed other countries that in the very beginning when they were like, well, you should just go in there. And if you go in there, Russia's not stupid enough to go to war with the USA. We didn't. We did the sanctions. And now other countries like South Korea and Mexico, South Korea and Taiwan are wondering, well, is the U.S. going to back us up? Are they even going to come to our aid? It says Japan's Kyodo News agency reported that a group of 7 G7 countries are considering a near total ban on exports to Russia, citing Japanese government sources. Bloomberg News said on Thursday that the United States and UKR's allies were considering an outright ban on most exports to Russia. That report said officials from G7 nations were discussing the idea before a summit meeting in Japan next month. So just so you know, if the rest of the stuff, because they already have several companies, you won't see Coca-Cola in Russia. You won't see Monster Energy drink. You won't see all these different brands on their shelves. But what has happened is the local economy, the local makers of things, they have flourished. The local soda makers, the local this, local that. There's pieces that prove that essentially it ended up helping in a lot of ways because people weren't buying these exports from America or other countries. They were actually buying the locally made stuff. And since a lot of these people supported the conflict, they were doubling down and saying, yeah, we're going to support this and we're going to buy local. We're going to do this. And it ended up boosting them. I mean, it makes sense. But as far as the... is this a sign that this is about to go up a notch? If they pull out all of these exports and halt things going there, there's also less connections, less risk. When something does pop off, that they will have less things going in and less connections, less financial connections. Dex, what do you think? Am I off?
Well, I think they skirted those first round of sanctions, like you said, but I don't know if they're going to be able to pull this one off. There's only so much these other countries can do. I mean, like, for example, if other countries are buying extra oil, they have to store that, right? They're buying more than they need. So, okay, they can buy more than they need for this year. So what does that mean next year? They're going to buy less than they need. If they're going to buy more than they need next year, then come year 3, they're definitely buying less than they need because they've got a surplus and they're not going to buy it. So yes, it's a short-term fix, but it's not a long-term fix. And then when you layer in going from the sanctions that were just these very specific high GDP type or high expense type of items like oil to now everything, just saying we're not going to send anything in. We're going to completely, you can't get an iPhone. You can't get, a record. You can't get anything. Like all of it's shut off. That's, almost like Hermit Nation over there with NK. If they cut them completely off, that's a much bigger deal. And I don't know how much they're going to skirt around it. Of course, they will. They'll go through their allies. They'll go through Iran. They'll go through China. They'll go through even potentially India, who likes to get in the middle of it and, try to not take sides, but still take sides. So, it's a big step if this actually happens. I'm kind of shocked that they're looking at this, but I like what you're saying too about this could be a precursor to ramping up things.
Well, we'll see what happens. And then we have Kiev says it terminates land lease deal with Russian embassy. I'm surprised they had one. I'm sure most people said, what? Kiev Mayor Vitaly Klitschko on Thursday said that the city had terminated the Russian embassy's deal to lease land in the capital and wanted the property to be returned to the UKR state. UKR broke off relations with Russia after February 2022 invasion. There are no Russian diplomats in the embassy building, which lies to the west of the city center. Today, Kiev City Council terminated the land lease agreement with the embassy of the aggressor. What's funny is it says it had also appealed to the cabinet of ministers of UKR regarding the return of the property of the diplomatic establishment of the Russian barbarians to the UKR state. Someone look at this and go, well, of course, if they're at war, then whatever. But under these agreements that they do when they have an embassy in another country, Dex, doesn't it make it that that's officially a part of Russia? Like that's a little tiny piece of Russia while they are in it, right? If you go to an embassy, you're on that country's soil, correct?
Correct. That's how it's treated. That's how the treaties are written that allow that to happen that way. It may not be that they own that little piece of land, like in this case, it's leased. But while they're there and while they have to treat it as such, and that's the case. So the other thing is by terminating this, Russia kicked back and said, "Yeah, you're doing that. Well, we're doing the same thing to all of your anything that you have in our country." So they're going to lose those rights as well.
Well, so yeah, because if you, I guess it's not that crazy. It's not the biggest thing, but it's at the same time, I don't know. It's kind of interesting because it's like, well, of course, right? But since they have these pre-done kind of agreements and things, and that's Russian soil, I guess it kind of backs up that it's probably not going to go back to normal in the next month, like some experts said. Dex, go ahead.
Well, the other thing is doing this is not just something that you do during conflict, because they would have done it 2 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. This is more of a sign that they don't expect there to ever be relations again. This is kind of a big deal. It's not a big deal, but it is. It's sort of like you could have just left things alone, let it sit there, because we expect to have this conflict. It'll be over at some point. We'll either win or they'll win. But if we win, meaning we as in UKR, I'm talking as from their point of view, if they, when it's over, there's eventually going to be diplomatic relations that have to go on. So they're going to need a place. So it's like, why are you undoing everything just to have to do it again later, unless you think there's a reason not to, that will never happen again.
Yeah. So probably not going to have peace and love anytime soon, or ever. And then before we move on, make sure to go over and check out marfooglenews.com/prep if you want to get long-term survival food that will last up to 25 plus years. Then you can go get it over here, and you can get it at a huge discount. It's $200 off when you use our code. All you have to do is, again, use that link, and that actually works as our code. It will get you $200 off on a 3-month supply. And that, of course, is also not going to go bad for over 2 decades. So if the price on freeze-dried food triples like it has in the last 3 years, in 3 years from now, you'll still have 22 years left on the shelf, and you'll still have, again, a ton of time left on that, and you'll save a whole lot of money. People are looking at this almost as an investment because the value of freeze-dried food has gone up so much. But it is definitely good to have in general for a disaster, any kind of disaster, no matter where you live. There could be a rolling blackout or a hurricane or an earthquake or a flood, whatever it may be. These are a really good thing to have, especially anything over I believe it's 2 weeks, because they are sealed in those buckets and then sealed in the Mylar bags. So make sure to go check it out. Thank you guys for going and doing so. You'll get a discount and you'll help our channel at the same time. All right, and then a man bought $250,000 of plane tickets for $17,000 after a Japanese airline made a mistake with currency conversions, report says. So essentially, he got a super deal. What happened is there was some sort of glitch, and he was able to buy these incredibly expensive first-class tickets for nearly nothing. It says that Yippee said that he had bought tickets for family and friends as well as for himself. It says, quote, "I didn't even bother to ask them whether they were able to make it or not, as I needed to book really quickly." Bloomberg reported that flights he purchased included a first-class round trip from Jakarta, Indonesia to Aruba via Tokyo and New York that cost just $890. And that's a first-class round trip. That doesn't have our, I mean, the $890 is like the cost of the food you would probably get on that trip. I don't know. I've never been first class, but I'm assuming $890 and for like a 40-hour flight or something, a round trip. It's like 50 hours or something. You're going to get like 10 meals. That's insane. It says, or a discount of close to 95%. So, are you kidding? That means that a first round trip is normally, that same trip is like $10,000. I didn't even realize that. I guess that's a really, really long trip. But that's how much they cost. I thought they were like $2,000 or $3,000. I guess it depends on where you go. $10,000 to travel somewhere that you could also just go, maybe I'll sacrifice the hot towel and spend like, $300. I don't know. I've never been first class. Of course, like everybody else who has never done it, I would love to one time. And I've never been lucky enough where they're like, oh, yeah, we have to go 30 minutes early, so we're going to boot you up to first class. I've always wanted that. Every trip I've taken, I'm like, please have them make a mistake. I'll wait 2 hours to do it. But nope. But apparently, he's gonna. So I wonder, he can sell these, right? Dex, and also it looks like you had a note about, was there a change in the prep? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I just noticed they instead of 200 off, it's now the Alexa Pure water filtration system.
Okay.
With the 3 months, which is a $279 value, so it's even better than 200 off if you want that.
Yeah, and it covers more bases. So they did this before they did $200 off, then they did the Alexa Pure, then they went back to the 200. I actually think the Alexa Pure is actually a better deal because it's a massive water filtration system. It's a gravity-fed filtration system. It's actually, again, something that everybody will need as well, as far as this is a great thing to have in your arsenal. So again, go check it out, and that removes 99.9% of all of the nasty stuff. And most people don't trust their water anymore, so that's a good freebie to get. All right, and then let's see here. Yeah, so that's nuts. Dex, can he sell those tickets? You can buy a ticket and sell it, right?
I don't think so. Not anymore. They're usually per the person's name that you put them in. You may be able to get credit for it, but I'm sure the airline would love for him to turn it in for credit, because then they would only give him $800 or $550, whatever the prices were for these, and then he would not be able to pay for a first class ticket somewhere else with. So yeah, they had a currency issue where the currency conversion was screwed up in their computer, and if you used a different currency, you were able to get these great deals for a very short time.
But what is he gonna, how does he have $17,000 laying around to fly, even though he got a great deal? Is he the kind of guy that's like, well, it's on sale, so I have to buy it? Like, what are you doing going to Jakarta, Indonesia, New York, Tokyo, blah, all this? If he's actually traveling around, that would make sense, but that's $17,000. That's insane.
Yeah, that is. Obviously, he's got it. So, but, and for those of us that have never been in first class, I do know that when you take those international flights, it's a totally different kind of first class than what we pass by when we have to sit in coach here domestically in the States. It's, it's not just that seat. It's usually those like fancy beds and, like your own little private little cubby area kind of stuff.
No, they're nooks.
Usually those,
they're nooks.
They spend a lot of money on those first class sections of those big international flights. So
you get to lay down. The only way I've seen this is Casey Neistat, said flying a $10,000 first class flight or whatever, and he shows you're in your like own personal nook with like Wi-Fi, laptop. They bring you food. They bring you whatever you want. They bring you like unlimited drinks. I mean, I don't know. And they bring you all sorts of different really good food. Not the first class. I have technically sat in, I think they call it business class. There was one plane where it was first class, but it was like Spirit Airlines first class or something, where they're like, in first class here, you just get leather, It was just a slightly bigger chair, and I think that I got a towel at one point, but it wasn't hot. It was just like a blue dish towel. They were like, we got this from the sink, and we want you to have it. And a couple of the pilots signed it, and it was a moment. I still use it. It's stained with bleach because I used it to clean the toilet, but It, it was an amazing time in my life. In my life. Dex, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, the back of those planes is no different than the back of the planes that we fly here domestically. So if you've ever flown on a plane and sat in the middle seat and you're squished up and the seat in front of you is reclined into your knees and you have no room to move to the right, to the left, that's what it's like sitting international coach for 14 straight hours. It's pretty miserable.
Not fun. And then let's see here. Yeah, I think I was in business class. I got a pretty good meal. It was pretty good. And I think I did get like you do get a hot towel, and even some coach flights get that. But let's see here. Dex, let's go over the web only. We've got some crazy stuff here.
And I just want to touch on, I think we missed one, the Royal Navy Sweden military drills. Do you
Oh,
have that?
I have that. I think I have that next. In fact, hold on. Let me
Okay.
see. It didn't
Let's make sure
actually
we cover
load.
that. Well, let me know if you need it.
Oh no, I got it. What happened is it's a Dropbox. So hold on. Give me a second. The Royal Navy Task Force Group heads for the Baltic for Sweden's largest military drills in 25 years. Well, since they're been pretty neutral, but this is the Royal Navy, and they're actually, it says that they are going to, UK strongly supports Sweden's accession to NATO and continues to operate closely with the Swedish Armed Forces as part of the British-led Joint Expeditionary Force, which is designed to react in events in Europe's many crucial waterways and choke points. It says that as part of the continued close cooperation, which also includes an agreement on deliveries of Archer self-propelled guns to Britain, HMS Albion is part of a task group of ships and commandos into the Baltic for an exercise designated to test Sweden's ability to counter an armed attack on the country. Some 26,000 troops and 14 nations are lined up for the training across the Nordic nation, and the Royal Navy will be at the heart of it, carrying out amphibious exercises led by amphibious flagship Albion and commandos including Royal Marines and 45 Commando as part of the High Readiness Littoral Response Group, or LRG. The training is the largest Swedish national exercise of its kind in more than 25 years. Albion and the Littoral Response Group's last period of operations took us north to Arctic Norway, where we participated in a significant joint expeditionary force exercise. Our next period of operations is going to take us to the Baltic, where again we'll be exercising with allies and partners and demonstrating the UK and Royal Navy's commitment to Northern European security. So this is a pretty big deal as well, because obviously Finland has now officially joined NATO. Sweden is trying, but they're basically drilling with them as if they are a part of it. They're just not official yet, right? But we always look at the drills. When something like this happens, you got to pay attention, because drills can always be a sign of something real, and it's a good way to move military around without causing a lot of alarm. Sweden, of course, Finland, if they were doing something massive on their border, it would be probably a little bit more alarming, since they obviously are already building up fences and digging trenches. It's kind of nuts. But Sweden is right behind that. So, Dex, as far as the drill goes,
It's a lot of people.
yeah, 26,000.
And the Baltic is very critical to Vlad. That's, St. Petersburg has to go right through there to get out from their port. So they go through there all the time. Obviously, why it's so critical. And this is pretty big as far as size goes. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, the stated mission is not one that's very provocative towards Vlad. It's not like they're practicing an invasion on Russia. They're just practicing protecting the country of Sweden. So but still, nonetheless, it's in that territory. It's right next door. It's right there in the waterways in the area which they traverse all the time. And yeah, that's a lot of people. So we'll keep an eye on it.
And people are talking about a submarine story. If there's something new, please put it in the chat. Otherwise, it's majority of the times we've probably already covered it, if not days before. Monkeyworks. Oh, so this might be something new. Dex, can we check on Monkeyworks and see if they... I know they do a great job of tracking all the flight radar stuff and all sorts of naval radars and things. Otherwise,
okay, I'll look.
That's our if there's something breaking, we'll make sure to add it in. While you're doing that, I'll just also remind people you can also go to the Overflow to see the Wages World video that is up there. And let's see here. There's a large halo eruption on the sun heading right at Earth and has caused radio blackouts. When you go over there, you'll see that video. It's at the very bottom of today's episode. It's available in the show notes down below. There's also, of course, a ton of other content. There's all sorts of stuff about President JB. Elon Musk, of course, the more with that. And then T-Man's pollster and more DeSantis versus T-Man stuff. And I'll let Dex cover the rest of the tech stuff. But Dex, did you? Is there anything that we can see, or if it's something?
Yeah, I'm not done looking yet. But let's go. Let me finish with the what's going on with the Overflow. So, what did you covered wages already, right?
Yes, and I'll go check in the T-Man stuff, but I'll go check on Monkeyworks while you do this.
Okay, cool. So yeah, the rest of the story. So again, guys, if you're new here, it's the show notes link. It's down in the description. It takes you to our website. It's really easy to get to. Look, there's other things happening besides the political stuff, but there's some interesting stuff like JP Morgan's ties to EpiPen. That's being exposed even, and they're saying it's even deeper than the bank had acknowledged, and that's coming out of Wall Street Journal of all places. So that's being covered. Pretty interesting story if you want to look at that. Apparently the OOG had 80 acres in San Jose. They were building their new mega campus, but as we've seen all these like tech cutbacks that they've been doing, they've actually put that on hold. And one of the elites has built yet another wall around their compound, and that's upsetting their neighbors. That would be Oprah. If you want to know what's wrong with the wall, it has something to do with floodwaters. We do have updates on what's going on, a little bit more of what's happening in UKR. Not as much, just some stuff with what they're suggesting is happening with the Wagner Group, potentially taking students and putting them on the front line against their will, and some other updates that are going on in UKR. So all of that's there. Demand for bulletproof cars is another headline that's in there. Some updates on the sort of like I guess you can call it an update. It's something I've sort of talked about, I know, a lot with people around me, but it's this whole notion of the faith that we have lost in those things that were meant to protect us from things like CV, and the original need for those versus where we have come today. It's a really fascinating story. I think it tells a lot of insight to the psychological things that have happened around the that goes in your arm, if you know what I mean. So hey, that we've got updates on the Kias and Hyundais being able to be stolen using a screwdriver and a USB cord. I kid you not. That's how easy it is. Kind of a big deal. So that and so much more. Updates on the budget, updates on this Homeland Security chief. Go check it out. It's all on our website. Just go to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, or open up that show notes link that's right down below in the description. It'll take you right here. We put it together for you every show. It's the rest of the story.
By the way, I'm just listening to luckily, some awesome person says that he sums up that last video in the last 2 minutes. I totally agree with Monkeyworks on... If you go to his last video 12 hours ago, focusing on the Asian Pacific front, I completely agree with him. That Vlad is holding back all of their high-tech new stuff, and that they're going to wait until Of course, they're going to finally take UKR. Then NATO is going to engage. Then they're going to use all the crazy stuff. Then all of the stuff with China will end up going down. They're basically having us deplete all of our stuff in UKR. And then when NATO engages over here, that's when China is going to do the Taiwan thing. And that has to be sooner than later. The timeline does not work if this goes further out. If China does plan, and I believe they do plan to take Taiwan and even Japan and possibly even Guam or Hawaii, then they would have to do it sooner than later. They want to control that whole ocean over there. They want to have many more. And the way that they're investing in those crawler ships that are digging up and are able to create islands in the middle of nowhere, the way they're investing in that, it tells me that they are going to make a lot more of the Spratly Islands, and they are going to start controlling that whole ocean. Once they do, that's something that's very scary, because they will start becoming the number one out of nowhere. I mean, it's not out of nowhere. We all see it happening. They're infiltrating. Once I show you guys, it's almost like Xi is inspired by Genghis Khan. I mean, it's really how Genghis Khan was able to almost conquer the world, 800 years ago or 600 years ago, whenever it was. The 1400s, yeah. Or no, 11 or 1200s. So, yeah, 800 years ago. Dex, thank you so much for your service tonight. I appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
And thank you, everybody that supported tonight. Specifically, thank you so much, Kelly Josie, Susie Bailey Kupti, Carol, Tennessee Mountain Girl, Neil Nelson, Be Real Beast, and Stephen McMahon, Richard Koschmeider, Carol, Mystery School, Jamie Lanier, Fairies of Venus, Kenny Crowder, Bible Talk 777, Lord McCormick, Desert Nurse, Ilea. Thank you for both not only supporting, but being an awesome mod. Also, you can find Aaliyah over on marfooglenews.com/friends, where you can also find all of our great mods like Chance over on DLive. Of course, CJ Blaze, Jammer1. By the way, if you guys, Lisa's been so busy lately, but I know that she misses the Foogle fam. She's been working a lot for the nights that she hasn't made it. You guys just know Lisa is one of the coolest people in the world. You got to go visit her. And make sure to subscribe. RGL Harris, Leah. Of course, Rip Curl Readiness was in last night. It was so awesome to see you, Rip. And then Trinity, Red or Blue Pill. And, of course, Wages World. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody that stopped in tonight. Thank you over on DLive. Thank you, Davros Von Scaro. If you guys haven't checked out his channel over on DLive, make sure to go do so. Scooby-Doo right. Carrie Ray and everybody else. Anybody want to Rochambeau to see who goes for snacks? I have not heard Rochambeau since I was like 8. So that's awesome. All right. Thank you guys. Much love. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. It is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. Thank you, everybody, for making it tonight. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. Thank you to our top supporters tonight. I got the Kelly on the way with the J-Ray. I got the B-Bay on the B-Black. I said a B on the Blake and a way. And the Rockwell R in the C-Say. I got the Lord just a little bit of morbid. I said, hey, with a Katie Clears alive, Karen on the bill, yeah. Smoke a blunt. No, wait, that was yesterday. Bug Nana, everybody go. Bug Nana, Bug Nana, 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 go. Get there like the Maytag. I'm on the way back. Low lane till I get there like the Maytag. Maytag, 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 I'm on the way back. Low lane till I get there like the Maytag. Maytag, like the Maytag. Looks like tonight's top supporter is Neil Nelson. Thank you. Got the Neil Nelson in the Neil Nelson. I'm a egg. A Neil Nelson. I'm a hip. Got the Neil Nelson. Got the Neil Nelson. Got the Neil Nelson. Got the Neil Got the Neil Nelson. Get the Neil Nelson, 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 Neil Nelson, get the Neil Nelson, get the Neil Nelson, Neil Nelson, get the Neil Nelson, get the Neil Nelson. In the world, getting real messy. Everybody gonna be arrested. Hopefully they're ready. Let's bring it on the back with my essay. In the world.